Hello, Martians. How are you? Yes. You know what? She's made me sit down because she's got a short complex.
That's not my fault.
She blames me. She blames me for my
He's
genetics.
6 foot. I'm 5'4".
It's not me. It's her mother. Her mother's short, not me. Anyway.
You could have contributed more.
Apparently I don't contribute enough. So, hello everyone. We're back. Back on a more normal keel, seeing as we're back working in a normal thing. And we're in Brisbane. So
Hooray.
we
Back
were...
with the green screen.
Well, my plan was not to be in front of the green screen. Was the plan,
yeah.
considering everything. My plan was that we were going to do this roving about and that we'd actually go and show you a bit of Brisbane. And we'll try each week to show you a bit of Brisbane. We'll go to the beach. We'll go to a few places so that you can see Martians getting out and just having a look rather than just having a bit of green in the background. However, when I went to do it, my mother, my lovely mother, packed our boom mic, our directional mic, the one that we use when we go about.
Yeah, the road mic.
The road mic. She packed it in a special container, and of course, instead of in the sound bag, so I didn't have it with me. So we're just doing this where we normally record. So we both saw Doctor Strange this week. What did you think?
So good.
It was so good.
Yeah, it was so good. The visuals were amazing.
The visuals were amazing. I have to say, it's a very pretty movie.
Oh yeah.
It's a very, very pretty movie. I gotta say, I was rather impressed with the prettiness of this movie. You know what, Marvel? Here's the thing. There is nothing wrong with a bit of color in your movies, and in fact, if you go looking through your comic books, you're gonna find a shit ton of color in your comic books. Just saying. So it's quite okay if you want to throw a little bit of color in your movies. I'm not going to be upset. I don't think anybody else will be. Take a hint from Doctor Strange. A little bit of colour goes a long, long way. So we both agree on that.
Oh, yes.
We both agree that the cloak is awesome.
Oh, yeah, it's basically a character in its own right.
And we both agree that Benedict Cumberbatch makes a great Harrison Ford. He has that right combination of running towards the thing that you've got to beat and running away from the thing that's going to beat you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about action heroes, is they shouldn't always be running towards the thing that they've got to beat. I get that in that whole superhero-y thing, it's always, we must be strong. We must be strong. We fight. Always fight. Never run away. Whereas, you know what? One of the things which I think that makes Indiana Jones work for me is the fact that Indy runs away occasionally. Indy knows this is not my time. If I want to fight another day, I better do this. So I thought those were all good things.
It was very nice.
And we have to both say, I think, see it in 3D rather than 2D.
Yes.
I haven't seen it in 2D because I went in 3D, she went in 3D. We didn't go together because we actually went separately.
Yeah.
I went with Kiara, and I had dinner with Kiara, and that's all I can say because phone.
Yeah.
Teenager. Phone. Interaction, 0. It just happens that way.
It's just like why I like being sort of...
You're somewhere in between.
Somewhere in between Gen X and Gen Y, because then I can interact with both sides
Apparently so.
reasonable ability.
You know what? I would have been so much better if I'd texted her while she was sitting next to me. We were having sushi, for Christ's sake. We were at a sushi bar. You know, one of those trains where they go round and round and round.
God damn it, now I want sushi.
and we're just taking the sushi straight off, as you do. And, you know, so we're sitting right beside each other. And you know what? I would have been better off if I was just texting. Anyway, so that's what we thought about Doctor Strange. Both of us agree it's a great movie. We enjoyed it a lot. The only big thing that I think we both agree on is not the best is they still haven't worked out how to do bad guys.
Yeah, they need to learn how to do bad guys.
Mads is a fantastic bad guy.
He's amazing.
Completely wasted in this movie because...
Just go watch the first season of Hannibal. You can totally understand why he's the perfect bad guy.
Well, look, the one thing that I will say is the next bad guy for Doctor Strange has been set up very well. Mordo, he's been set up so well because we actually got to see him for the whole movie.
You can understand why he decided to become bad.
We got to that moment where he decides, you know what? I don't agree with the way things are being done. I'm going to fucking do something about it. Totally down with that.
Oh, yeah.
Works for me.
It's amazing.
Okay, so now, movie of the week. The movie we talked about this week in the end of our transhumanism. I decided to bring our transhumanism stuff to a close. We could have done another one. I was originally going to do a Miyazaki film, but then I decided, no. What we'll do instead is we will do a whole run of Miyazaki immediately after we do the next run, which is politics. And
I
think
need a break after that.
We all need a break. And you know what? It's nice to just have some fun for a change. We've done 4 really quite hard-hitting serious subjects in a row by the time we finish politics, and we sort of changed our view of politics. I'm going to do 50-50 split, so we're going to do 4 topics from Western side, and we're going to do 4 topics from the Eastern side. So we're actually going to do a bit of a split this time.
Which is actually kind of nice and interesting and different for us.
It will be different for us. But then we're going to do Miyazaki after that. So we're going to go through Nausicaa, we'll go through Porco Rosso, and a whole range of Miyazaki films which have got at least some level of science fiction overlap. We won't do all of them, but we will do a good proportion of them. So that's something to look forward to. But the movie of the week that we reviewed this week, or we talked about this week, bringing transhumanism to a close, was The Ghost in the Shell. Let me just say, The Ghost in the Shell as a movie, the 1996 movie, makes no sense.
I told you so.
Oh my God. You know what? Look, the way I sort of see it is this, and this is how I sort of explain it in the podcast, is right. You have this opening scene where they kind of introduce you to the central character and, you know, and what Section 9 is supposedly all about. But that first thing that you get to see is, you know, the major. She's committing an act of cold-blooded murder as the way we're introduced to the character, which the way I described that in the podcast was essentially throwing a steaming cow pat at the audience and then saying, that warm, sticky feeling that you're feeling right now, that's all just part of the experience.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay, so that aside, the fact that this movie is cobbled together from multiple storylines that don't really have a whole lot of connection, that we have threads that go nowhere and
they don't even finish off the story.
No, exactly. They don't even finish the story. It's like, you know, this is the ending of this story is very, very similar to Monty Python and the Holy Grail. We ran out of money, so we're just gonna basically end the movie here in whatever way we can and just hope that nobody looks, because that's just the way it is. But taking that aside, it is absolutely a brilliant movie. Forgetting all of its flaws, because there are a bucket load of flaws in this movie in terms of the storytelling. The ideas that are presented in this are absolutely fantastic. As an exploration of transhumanism, it does so much better a job than anything that I've seen so far in the Western movies that we looked at, with the possible exception of Transcendence. Yeah. And given that many critics, etc., bag Transcendence, just goes to show how little they really understand about the topic. There are no words. But what I will say is, though, when you look at this in 1996 versus Transcendence, which is like 20-odd years later, and you go, this is how complex the conversation was in Japan in 1996, and we're only just beginning to have this at a much more fantasy level conversation much later on, because I've got to tell you, Ghost in the Shell to me feels real. Oh yeah. It feels like a real story. It feels like something that people. It feels like a world that could really exist.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it feels like the kind of world that we could actually end up with. You know, I'm not sure that I agree with World War III and World War IV getting us there, but it still nonetheless feels like a world that we could get to. And because it feels like a world we can get to, I sort of, you know, I just sit there and I go, this absolutely kicks ass in comparison to everything I've seen from the West. Because the point of transhumanism is that it is coming up really, really fast. You know, when Zoltan is here she goes. Yeah, see there. I knew that was going to get an eye roll. I'm guaranteed eye roll. You know, when Zoltan talks about transhumanism and he talks about these technologies coming up really, really fast, whether it be AI or transhumanism, he's not wrong. You know, when it comes down to it, we're not talking, 50 years. We're talking potentially 10 years before these technologies really start to kick into the general population. We haven't even begun to talk about them. These technologies are going to be hitting us long before we even begin to have the conversation. And when we're talking these days about things like social justice and all these sorts of things, these technologies are going to genuinely disrupt society in a big way. And if you look at Ghost in the Shell and you go, well, you know what, that's not the world that we're going to end up with, certainly not within 10 years. Yes, I'll totally agree with you. Cybernetics are not going to be at that point within 10 years. But the fact of the matter is that will they be at that point within my lifetime? You know what, 2030 which is where this is set. I'm sitting here going, you know what, 2030 odd or beyond is not necessarily completely out of the ballpark for having a good starting run at some of this stuff. And I sit here and I go, look, this stuff is coming up really, really fast. These technologies are coming up fast. And science fiction has, by and large, skirted around it. Whereas in 1996, Japan, they're having these really, really complex, deep philosophical conversations about the meaning of human existence, how these technologies are going to fit in, what are going to be some of the problems, what are some of the risks, all that kind of stuff. Really mature, really complex conversations in cartoons, for God's sake. And we can't even have that at a basic level in Hollywood, and yet these technologies are coming up so fast. So we did it really well. Science fiction in the West handled things like the iPad really, really well, has handled transhumanism very, very poorly, and quite frankly, in terms of the mass media, the stuff that actually gets out to a lot of people. And at this point, transhumanism isn't even a thing as far as the world is concerned, and yet transhumanism is very much a thing. Not only is it a thing, it's a thing coming really, really fast. And the way we kind of ended our conversation today is we both agree it's going to come to the East and the West, but certainly Japan will embrace not just make use of transhumanism. They're going to embrace transhumanism. Yeah. Japan stands to be, I think, in the transhumanism side of life, stands to be the big winner because they will have the technology, they will implement it quicker, they will get to the point where they create their products and technologies and services, and they'll just sell the crap to us. We won't have a choice but to buy it from Japan. So Japan, you're going to run the world. And we're just going to have to be your slaves. I welcome our Japanese masters with open arms.
As long as I get to keep watching anime whenever I feel like it, that's okay.
And with that, bye for now.
Bye.